Welcome everybody, I'm Killzomzim, and so I wanted to do a second documentary, this going from the first crossover, Kill Saga X Killer Ted, leading into the second crossover dealing with the Syndicate. Now, when I ended up starting these series, I really wanted to do like a story, right? I really wanted to tell a story about, heroes, friends, and stuff like that, and watch these characters slowly develop over time. And so, what I ended up doing is, immediately after the events of the first crossover, I started doing little comedy skits. These comedy skits being part of the story. Because these comedy skits would be fleshing out these characters, telling us more about them little by little, and allowing them to grow with each other, like if they're actually becoming good friends over time. Start growing as friendship or whatever. And you start to slowly see how they go from being, like, okay-ish acquaintances to good friends over the course of these comedy skits. And so, like, I ended up really enjoying that, watching these characters grow over time and becoming closer and closer. After these comedy skits, however, this leads into the first big thing of this, like, whole, lead up to the second crossover. Killer Ted 9 and 10. Now, in Killer Ted 9 and 10, this is the first time where something or someone has interrupted the fights between Ted and Matt. So obviously in Killer Ted 9, no one else is there, but Matt and Ted end up getting attacked by zombies. It's not mentioned in the episode, or the following episode, Killer Ted 10, where these zombies came from. They just show up. And it's not mentioned till way later as to where these zombies came from. And so it's like a big deal, whatever. And so Matt and Ted are just overwhelmed by these zombies. They just can't handle them. So they end up contacting Kill and Kessler. Kill and Kessler show up. They take down the zombies with Ted. Matt's infected, though. And so this is when Kill faces his first big dilemma. And he basically is forced to kill Matt. Because Matt is infected. And if the zombie virus gets out to the general public, well, bad things could happen. And so he ends up killing, Matt. And what ends up happening is the first thing the Kill does is he just spaces out. He zones out. This leads into Kill Saga, the Mercenaries, where Kill and Kessler, right after the death of Matt, are being attacked by the first member of the Syndicate that we meet, which is the Executioner. He ends up attacking them, and the first time you see Kill in this episode, he's zoning out. He is just broken. He is zoning out, looking at the dead body of Matt. He just can't believe it, And so what ends up happening is the Executioner shows up, and this is the first member of the Syndicate that we see. The Syndicate was hinted at as, a potential threat to the team all the way back in Kill Saga Techie. Techie, being the technician of the team, ends up telling Kill, like, hey, this Syndicate is wanting to kill you for some reason, and I don't know why. Stay on alert because they want to kill you, so just, understand that they might be superheroes, but they want to kill you, so just be careful. And so it's hinted at in that episode, like, the Syndicate is after you. Well, in the Mercenaries episode, the first member of the Syndicate shows up, and he effortlessly takes down Kessler, and he takes down Kill. After that, this leads into the big thing of this episode, where Kill and Kessler are both tortured, and Kessler dies to his wounds, whereas Kill is forced to live with the fact of what happened. After this, Kill kills their captors, and he cries, and he prays that whoever's above, asking them to watch over Kessler. And you can just look at Kill and just tell he's broken. This leads into the next episode, Kill Saga Memories. Kill Saga Memories being about the next member of the Syndicate showing up, Cerebrum. Cerebrum is someone that messes with your mind and whatnot. And he ends up showing Kill the death of Matt. And he shows him that and blames Kill for it and says there were different ways you could have handled this. You could have handled this a bunch of ways differently. And he's blaming him for it, just making him feel worse and worse. And then this is where the episode introduces new information, aka Kill's mom. And at this point, we had never heard anything about Kill's backstory. This is the first time that we're shown anything about Kill and his past. And we come to find out in the episode that Kill's, mother was murdered. And he blames himself because he feels like he should have done something even if he was only 8. And Cerebrum, knowing this, uses that to his advantage and makes Kill feel awful for the death of his mother, saying that you should have saved them. You had the chance to save both, but you chose not to. You chose to do the other thing that you normally do. You chose to be a coward. And those words really stick with Kill because and people asked me when this episode first came out, why wasn't Kessler's death mentioned in this episode? And it's because I wanted to focus in this episode on the deaths that Kill feels guilty for. Kill feels bad for the death of Kessler. He really does, and that is ultimately what finally fully broke him. But he doesn't blame himself like, I could have done something more, because he couldn't do anything. He was being tortured and he was tied up. He couldn't do anything when Kessler died. Matt, however, died at the hands of Kill. Kill had felt like he had no choice and he had to kill him. Otherwise, the virus would get out to the general public and other people could die. And in the case of his mom died and he hid underneath their bed. He didn't go out to save her. He didn't call 911, but he heard her screams as she died. And so Cerebrum uses those 2 deaths because he knows that Kill feels guilty for them. And he uses those 2 deaths to make Kill feel awful. Feel, like shit. And Kill breaks down, and Cerebrum uses that to kill him. And when Kill dies, at the end of the episode, this leads into a very small little reference to something. Cerebrum says, yes, the director's son is dead too. And this proves, this starts to point in the direction of who, Kill's father is. And it starts to point to the idea that maybe his father had something to do with, Kill's death. And it starts planting those little seeds and whatnot. This leads into my favorite episode of the entire 2 shows, Killer Ted and Kill Saga. This leads to my favorite episode, Kill Saga Paradition. Kill Saga Paradition is by far, in my opinion, my best acting and my best episode yet. In this episode of Kill Saga, Kill is in purgatory after he dies at the hands of Cerebrum. And when he's in purgatory, he ends up getting flashbacks to the deaths of Matt, Kessler, and his mom. And you start to see how he's trying really hard throughout this episode to hold back his emotions, to hold back how he feels. He's rinsing the blood that he has all over his body because he's looking at it and he's imagining the blood of the people that he's quote-unquote murdered or the people that he let down and let die. And so he sees his hands and arms and body full of blood and he starts wiping it away and he's looking at it blaming himself. And you start to see him over the course of the episode slowly break down, slowly cry, trying to hide it behind his smile, but he just can't hide it anymore. And he's just so depressed. And at the end of the episode, when he finally comes back after being so depressed, and there's no dialogue, might I add, after he finally comes back at the end of the episode, he doesn't say, oh, it's good to be back, or nothing. He doesn't say anything, or it's like, where's Kessler, where's Matt? The first thing he does is he slowly starts to cry because of everything that he feels guilty for. And every single person that watched this episode was like, this is the best acting you've had, you made me feel things. And I loved this episode when it came out, and I still do. This is by far my favorite episode that I've created. I love it with a fucking passion. I love it so much. Because I conveyed in this episode so much about this character, Kill, what he feels, what he hides. Because if you just watch Kill from the first crossover to Paradition, right? You just see a character who is unsure of himself, doesn't know what to do about things or whatever. He's very unsure. He doesn't know if he can handle certain things. He doesn't know if he can do anything on his own. He's a very shy and, held off person. He doesn't feel capable. And you start to slowly understand why. And why he, smiles so much. Why he seems later on to get a little more cocky or whatever. He's hiding a lot of the pain that he has from his past and a lot of the pain that he's accumulating even from his present. And so he's hiding a lot of that behind his smile and his cockiness. And that was a big thing for me to show because for me, it resonated with me a lot because I felt like I did that a lot too during middle school and high school. So to play a character who was going through a lot of the same things, not in terms of, I didn't grieve over someone dying, but I was depressed about other things. For me to play a character who was going through similar struggles to what I was going through, one, it made me kind of emotional when I made the episode, and two, it just made that my favorite episode that I've created thus far. This led into Kill Saga: The Invisible Man, which introduced the third member of the Syndicate. And this is the first time that we see Kill or any of his members beat someone from the Syndicate. Kill beats the Invisible Man, and at the end of the episode, it's shown that Techie, after asking Kill for his permission to use his blood, is able to sacrifice Kill's resurrection process for 2 days to bring back Kessler and Matt. And so, when my friends saw this, they immediately thought, like, does that mean that Kill and his team are forever immortal? And I said, don't worry, that'll be addressed eventually. And so, after that leads into Killer Ted 11 and 12, where everything seems like it's going back to normal. Ted and Matt are fighting. However, the Executioner from the Syndicate shows up to kill Matt, Kessler, and Ted. And after Killer Ted 12, Kill shows up, so Kill, Kessler, Matt, and Ted take on the Executioner and defeat him. They tie him up, and Kill basically says the rest of the Syndicate is on their way. We don't have much time. We need backup. And the other members are like, okay, what do we do? And he's like, we're going to go and free Dr. Nukenvote, the villain from the first crossover. Now, I really wanted to do this. I really wanted to bring Dr. Nukenvote back because, one, I really enjoyed the character from the first crossover. He's just a ruthless asshole. And I really liked, seeing him fight the other members. And a lot of my friends that watched the episodes back then did like the, Dr. Nukenvote character. And so I did want to bring him back. I didn't want him to just be off in some jail cell forever. Like, I really wanted to bring him back, to help out the team because he, at that point in time, was the most powerful member that we had seen in the series of Killer Ted or Kill Saga up until that point. He was just the most powerful. So much so that it took 4 of them, Kessler, Kill, Matt, and Ted, to take him down. And so at this point, he was the most powerful, so I wanted to bring him back for that, to show how capable he could stand up against the Syndicate. And I just really liked the character. And so in the first episode of the new crossover, Killer Ted x Kill Saga, the Syndicate, Kill frees Nukenvote and says, hey, I'll give you your freedom on one condition. You team up with me and my team to take down the Syndicate. And Nukenvote agrees. At the end of the episode, the Supreme Director is mentioned for the second time in the entire series. At this point, he's only been mentioned once, and this was when, Cerebrum mentions an offhanded remark saying that the Supreme Director is Kill's father. But he doesn't say it to anyone, he just says it on a walkie-talkie. And so, this is the second time that he's mentioned. The Supreme Director talks to the Syndicate and says, Kill has made a mockery of me. I want you to bring me him alive for my plans, but kill his team. And so the Syndicate starts to come. They start to come after the team. This leads into part 2 of the crossover, where Cerebrum takes over Kessler's mind, and Kessler goes toe-to-toe with Kill, Matt, and Ted. And this is where a big fight between the 3 versus Kessler starts. Kill instantly tells, Dr. Nukenvote, hey, go protect and make sure that the Executioner can't escape. You go over there, right? And he goes and, watches over him. So he goes and watches over him, and Kill, Matt, and Ted have to fight and take down Kessler. Now, the big thing about this fight is that clearly Kill, Matt, and Ted do not want to kill Kessler because he's on their team. But Kessler, since he's being mind-controlled, wants to kill them. So it's like a good fight between them and whatnot. They start to fight or whatever. My friends loved this fight. They loved the fight between these 3 versus Kessler. Eventually, the 3 win, and they beat Kessler. Well, this leads into part 3, where we get the rematch between Kill and Cerebrum. Now, this felt like a long time coming, because obviously Cerebrum was being a huge dick to Kill. He was torturing him with, the sins of his past or whatever, or the guilt of his past. And obviously, they were going to come to blows eventually. And so, it turns into a 3-way fight with Cerebrum versus Ted, Matt, and Kill. And they start to take him on. While the Invisible Man takes on Dr. Nukenvope. Dr. Nukenvope ultimately takes the Invisible Man down. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No hassle or anything. And the team takes on Cerebrum. Cerebrum ends up taking down Ted, and he takes down Matt. And the last one standing is Kill. And Kill ends up hitting him so hard that he ends up knocking his head clean off. This leads into the cliffhanger of the episode of part 3, where Avalanche is introduced for the very first time. This is the very first time he is ever seen, but he has been hinted at and talked about for episodes on episodes, saying how dangerous and scary he is. This is where he gets to prove how capable he is. In part 4, this leads into the fight between the team versus Avalanche. It's an all hands on deck. We come to find out that after the fight with Kill versus Cerebrum, Kill's mind was very badly damaged in the fight because, again, Cerebrum was doing a lot of mind games with his head. And so Kill was damaged so bad that he can't really function properly. And he can't move much. So because of that, Avalanche takes him down with one punch. He takes him down because Kill can't really move much of his body. After that, Kill is paralyzed and stuck in a certain area. This leads into the rest of the team from Kessler, Matt, Ted, and Dr. Nukenvope standing up for Kill and backing him up. This little scene, one, shows two things. One, they're not going to back down to someone who is as powerful as Avalanche. And two, this shows the bond that they've created over time. Because while, yes, like, they could have just ran away or whatever, this shows the bond that all of them have created with Kill. This shows the bond that Nukenvope, this is the bond and respect that they have for Kill. Because Dr. Nukenvope could have just easily stayed in the restroom where he took down the Invisible Man and just chilled there. He didn't have to approach Avalanche, but he comes out there because he has respect for Kill, and he made Kill a promise. And so because of that, he comes out to fight Avalanche, even though he doesn't have to. Ted, even though they have fought before in the past, he has respect for him. He stands up for him, and he's like, I'm going to take you down, Avalanche. And Matt and Kessler, both being really close friends to Kill, as soon as they see that he's down, they say the first things that they do is get away from our friend, and they all just start attacking him. Everyone starts taking on Avalanche or whatever. And at first, like, they actually get the upper hand on him. And it's like, wow, like, this team is handling Avalanche pretty well for someone that's apparently so overpowered, you know? Like, they're actually holding their own. And so they hold their own for a little bit, but this is when we start to see how powerful Avalanche truly is. Avalanche ends up immediately punching a hole straight through Matt, kills him. It's not even an if, ands, or buts about it. It's done in a flash. He kills Matt. And it's like, oh shit. Right? And so immediately Ted gets mad. This also shows the bond that him and, Matt have now. Because whereas before, through Killer Ted 1 through 8, it just seems like Ted is wanting to kill Matt. It isn't until Killer Ted X Kill Saga Part 3 where you see that Ted takes on Dr. Nukenvope by himself, where he seems like he's protecting Matt, And it's like a little offhanded thing. Like, you don't really think about it too much in the moment, but when you start seeing how mad he gets at the death of Matt, when Avalanche does it, or when Matt died as a zombie and he closes his eyes for him, you start to see that things might not be as they seem. Some character development for Ted right there, And so Ted, tackles Avalanche, starts getting pissed, trying to take him down. Kessler and Dr. Nukenvope start teaming up to take him down. And this is where the big second death of the episode comes into play. Ted ends up getting ripped in half, and he ends up dying to the, hands of Avalanche. And so it's a really big deal. Then Nukenvope ends up getting punched to death by Avalanche, brutally punched to death in the face to the point of where his guts are all over the floor. And this is a really big deal because this is the most powerful member of Kill's team, and arguably the most powerful person we've seen up until this point. But Avalanche has killed 3 members of Kill's team so effortlessly, it kind of is like, what the fuck are they supposed to do? So the last one standing is Kessler. And ultimately, Kessler ends up, dying in front of Kill, and Kill can't move. Kill can't move, he's paralyzed because of what happened with him versus Cerebrum. He's paralyzed, he can't do anything. and Avalanche forces him to watch as he snaps Kessler's neck in front of him. And Kill immediately just starts crying and breaking down. This is where Avalanche ends up dropping a lot of big information. He ends up dropping information on the fact that he just follows orders. He says that he brings up the murders of some agents where they framed Kessler, for murder. This is a big reference to the first time that Kessler shows up where he's framed for murder. Avalanche basically says that was them. He brings up how there were creatures that were made by Cerebrum to go and kill Matt, referencing the zombies. This is where the zombies came from. They're finally given an origin. Cerebrum made them. And they start talking about that until Kill dies. This leads into the part 5 of the crossover where everyone is in purgatory. Once everyone is in purgatory, Kill basically ends up making a deal with what seems to be like a demon. The demon says, and shows to him like, hey, look, your power can't keep bringing people back to life. It can't. It can only work for you. That was a one-time thing only. If you try to do it again, you're going to be sacrificing your own life to bring them back, and you can only do that to one person anyways. So it's not really worth it. And so the demon ends up asking him, hey, look, you can either, allow me to get the one thing you desire most, which is the death of your father, or, and I'll bring back your friends this one time, or you can just go back to being alive and your friends are dead. And this is when we find out that Kill really wants to kill his father. Like, he really wants to kill him. This is the first time that Kill has ever mentioned he wants to kill his father. And so this is implying that Kill knows that his father is responsible for his mother's death. It's a really big deal. And so Kill basically ultimately agrees once he realizes he can't bring them back. He sacrifices what he wants most, which is the death of his father, to get the power of the demon to take on the Syndicate. When he comes back, all his team is resurrected, and this is the last time that he can do that, and he has the power of a demon. Seems really out of left field, but, And he ends up taking on the Syndicate and basically ends up torturing them all. He makes Executioner listen to the voices and the screams of all the victims that he's killed over the years, to the point of where Executioner can't take it anymore and he kills himself. He ends up torturing Avalanche until he brings back Cerebrum and the Executioner as zombies and forces them to kill Avalanche, who's depowered at this rate. And it ends on a note where Kessler approaches Kill and says, "What have you done? Like, what is this?" And Kill says, "I did it, I won," referencing what he had said at the end of the first crossover, where he finally beat Ted and he felt accomplished, because that was a really big win for Kill. And he says, "I did it, I won." He says it again in this crossover, "I did it, I won," but now being a whole different thing. Whereas before, he felt really accomplished, super happy, and it was a really jovial moment, like, we should celebrate. In this one, his friends look at him a certain type of way for the dark path that he took to kill the Syndicate, to take them down. They look at him differently. But he still says the exact same phrase he said back then, because he feels accomplished. He feels like this is cause for celebration. But instead of his friends backing him up like they did in the first crossover, they're terrified of him. And so it's a very different thing from crossover 1 to 2. Now, people ask, like, hey, why did I bring up, this new version of Kill, Demon Kill? Why did I make this a thing? Because I wanted to show Kill adjusting over time to different things. So, for instance, Kill is dealing with grief. Now I want to see what Kill will do when he gets this kind of level of power. Will he be corrupted by it? Or will he not be corrupted by it? Will he change? If so, how drastically? Like, I want to change the character of Kill over time, and this is how I want to do it. Now, arguably, yes, the demon seems really out of left field. It really does. It's like, why a demon? Even though Kill can resurrect himself or whatever, and he goes to purgatory, it makes a little bit of sense that he would run into maybe angels or demons, because, again, purgatory. But I do have, deeper ideas for what I want the demon to become eventually, which will be explained later on. And I really love this. In terms of like the crossovers, I really do enjoy them, and my friends enjoy them too, which really makes it, it all the more better, in my opinion. I loved doing this crossover. It was great. It was amazing. I loved it. I loved the build up to it, where we were able to progress the character of Kill, give him more depth, show other sides of him that we normally didn't see, and show him grow over time to the point of where he, at the end of the day, was willing to sacrifice the main thing he's always wanted, which was the death of his father, to save his friends. He was willing to lose the thing that he's wanted for years just to save his friends. And that's a pretty big sacrifice. So, yeah, I really like this, and I can't wait to get to the third crossover. But, with that, guys, we're going to one video to close. I hope you guys check out the videos. The playlist will be in the description. Peace.